Hey, thanks for joining me again. I have so many things that I want to teach you about yoga, but before we get started, I think it might be great if we just go over some basic essential things that you might find helpful, things you might purchase, things you might not purchase before you get started with your home yoga practice. So, the first thing I wanted to go over with you today is designating a certain space in your house as your yoga space. I think it's nice for that space to be the same every time because then you can kind of leave your yoga equipment set up and you'll just kind of lower the resistance that there is to get started every day. You know, if you have to go to multiple locations to get multiple pieces of equipment, it's just going to add on to the stress of getting ready, and it's going to be a lot harder to get started. So I designate my living room as my yoga space. My yoga mat lives underneath my couch. I just pull it out, I roll it out, I make sure that there's a good 2 or 3 feet on each side of the mat so that if my yoga practice were to venture off of the mat just a little bit, I won't hurt myself in the process. So we should probably talk a little bit about yoga clothes. It's not super essential that you buy yoga clothes. What's most essential is that you have clothes that are stretchy, that allow you to move and bend, and that are maybe a little breathable so that you're comfortable when you're doing your practice. Your body is going to be moving in lots of directions that maybe it doesn't normally go in when you're wearing your everyday clothes. So make sure there's a little bit of extra room there so that you can move around. You'll find me practicing a lot of times in my pajamas because I tend to practice in the morning as soon as I get out of bed. And that works out great for me as long as I have something that I can tuck in. If you can't tuck in, then things might be flying all over the place. Now, if you've been eyeing a new yoga outfit and it is the thing that's going to help you get onto your mat tomorrow morning, then go get that thing, right? There's nothing wrong with getting a new yoga outfit. I'm just saying you don't have to have one. I'm sure y'all have some questions about yoga mats because there's so many different kinds and they're all kind of different. They're all a little bit expensive, so let me just give you the rundown. I personally think that it matters what kind of a surface that you're practicing on. If you're practicing on a hardwood floor, then you're going to want something that's a little bit more cushy than if you're practicing on a carpeted surface. There's lots of different options. I tend to practice with a yoga mat that is a little thinner because I practice on a carpeted surface. So my yoga mat is what you will see sold as a travel mat. It's really, really thin. They're really, really light, and it's just it's a rubbery kind of sticky surface so that my hands don't slip, but it doesn't give me any kind of cushion. That is a great option for carpeted surfaces. If you're practicing on hardwood floors, you're going to want something that's a little bit more padded. This is a pretty standard thickness for a yoga mat. If you can see that, it's going to give you a little bit of cushion, especially if you're down on your knees or something during a pose, and that way you'll be a little bit more comfortable. But if all you have is a towel and you want to practice on the floor, just throw that towel out. Maybe get another towel ready, and that way if a teacher says to get down on your hands and knees for a pose, you can grab that extra towel, set it where your knees will be, and that will provide the cushion that you need. There are also lots of mats that are thicker. This is a yoga mat that I got when I first started practicing yoga because I was doing a lot of camping at the time too, and I thought it might work really great as a sleeping surface as well as a yoga mat. That's true, actually. It works great. It's just that if I'm doing a standing pose or something like that, it's harder to balance on this squishy surface than it is to balance on something that is thinner. The gist of the story about mats is that you should think about the surface that you're practicing on and don't let not having a mat stop you from starting your yoga practice. Another item that you may be wondering about is something called a yoga block. This is what a yoga block looks like. It is a great tool that you can have to enhance your yoga practice. It's either going to help you to intensify a pose or make a pose harder, or it's going to help you to kind of support yourself so that you can make a pose more achievable for your body type. For example, let's say a teacher tells you to sit cross-legged, and this is not an easy thing for you to do. This is something that causes you a lot of stress because your body is tight and your knees don't go down all the way to the floor, and sitting there is just not comfortable. What would you do? Well, you would use a yoga block. Yoga blocks can be used to support your joints. So you set them on either side of the joint that you're wanting to support, and voila. Another thing that you can do with a yoga block is you can use it to add weight onto a pose. So say the teacher wants you to hold your arms out in front of you, and that seems pretty easy. And you kind of want to add a little bit of extra oomph to your yoga practice today. So you just grab onto a yoga block and you hold that out in front of you instead. And you can see how adding that weight will add a little bit extra to your yoga practice. A yoga block can also be used to help activate certain muscle groups. So if you are being told to get onto your forearms and you don't have a yoga block or anything to push into, that's a different sensation than if you have something here, and then you can push your hands into that and you'll be activating your arms a little bit more than if you were to just have no surface there at all. You can also use this block to help you balance. It's a great tool to have. That being said, a yoga block is not essential when you're practicing at home. Okay, there's lots of objects that you have around your house that you could use as a yoga block instead. I like to use a pile of books. If I need to support a joint, I can find a pile of books that is just the right height for my knee and set that down instead. If I want to add weight onto a pose and I don't have any blocks around, you can use soup cans, you can use really anything that you have already around your house. You may even have something like this. Another thing that you're going to hear teachers talk about in yoga classes is something called a strap. This is a yoga strap. It's basically a giant belt. It's a big long piece of fabric with a buckle, and it can be used to make loops, and these loops can be used to put around something and to help you get a little bit of resistance to pull against. For example, I can't reach my back foot in this, but I want to reach my back foot, but I'm not quite there yet. So I'm going to use this thing. I'm going to hook it around my foot, and that way I have some room here. Before I'm into a situation where I can grab my foot without the strap, I have a strap that I can use to help me kind of learn how to begin to imagine that my foot could touch my head. Similar to the block, there are plenty of things around the house that you can use as a strap so you don't have to buy one. Some of my favorite examples are jump ropes. A jump rope, if you have one, is perfect. Another great thing, if you have a robe, just take the belt off of your robe and voila. That's it. There's not really a lot to do before you get started with your yoga practice. I hope that you found this video informative and that you found a few ways that you could save yourself a little bit of money and time before you get started. As you can see, none of these objects are essential. The only thing that is essential is a desire to show up for yourself. And then again, you are allowed to say, "Girl, you're crazy. I don't want to start my yoga practice on a towel with soup cans." And that's okay too. If you want to wait for that Amazon delivery, just notice that you're doing that you don't have to do that, and that it's okay that you did.